You're back with The Nation. This week, Basketball New Zealand were put under pressure when they realised they'd have to find $25,000 to bring star player Steve Adams back from the US to play for the Tall Blacks. As it turned out, the Oklahoma City Thunder decided they wanted to keep Adams on their training program for now. But it put the spotlight on the money troubles of this sport. High Performance Sport New Zealand has refused to fund basketball as part of its 12 targeted sports. And Basketball New Zealand says it's now struggling to survive as a result. Tony Ing has the story.
For the alley-oop. Another three. Puts it in.
Basketball is a true global sport, and Steve Adams has made it into the toughest league in the world.
Oklahoma City Thunder select Stephen Adams from New Zealand.
14-year-old Joel Vaingna could be another Adams in the making. A talented player for Counties under-17s, he dreams of following his hero into the NBA.
Try to make a name for myself, definitely try to make the NBA like Stephen Adams, just try to make as far as I can.
And New Zealand basketball has come far. The Tall Blacks are off to the World Champs next year, and the Breakers have an astonishing 3 consecutive titles in the Australian National Basketball League. But Basketball New Zealand says the sport has been virtually ignored by the government funder High Performance Sport New Zealand. And despite its growing popularity and potential, basketball is struggling.
What have they got?
Judd Flavel was a member of the 2002 Tall Blacks team that finished 4th at the World Championships. He's now the assistant and youth development coach for the Breakers.
9,000 people are coming to watch the Breakers play. That's unbelievable, and a lot of those players are Tall Black players. There are youngsters coming through, so there needs to be a broader view about the sport and where it's going, and if there is resources thrown into it and yes, money thrown into it, then there will be better results coming forward. It's just not going to happen on its own.
Get past to Matt Patty Mills.
Basketball New Zealand Chief Executive Ian Potter says there's a lot of anger in the basketball community about the lack of funding for the sport.
Disappointing, I guess, for the basketball community because we don't understand that we're not high performance. Clearly we offer a Tall Blacks and Tall Ferns team. Clearly we think they're high performance. The Breakers have done a great job of showing that we are a high performance sport. So a bit of confusion in the basketball community about what that means.
The Tall Blacks are desperately trying to find enough money for their World Championship qualifying campaign against Australia this year. They should be playing warm-up games at home to get some much-needed exposure here. Instead, because of their lack of funding, they'll be playing in an all-expenses-paid Chinese tournament. The Tall Blacks have been forced to sacrifice their international program, that is hosting other countries here, because they simply can't afford it. But it's not just the top end of the sport that's in trouble. Basketball New Zealand says there are potential players like Steve Adams everywhere, but the sport needs more support to develop them.
We're very competitive as it is, but to compete even more internationally. And hopefully, more Steve Adams, more people around the globe. We won't retain the best ones here because the biggest opportunities are elsewhere. But that's not a bad thing for New Zealand, that's a great thing for New Zealand if we have more players overseas, as long as we can get them back when we want them.
But first, basketball needs to hold on to talented young players like Joel Vaingna. His coach Dave Ruha says other sports are much better funded at the grassroots level. And younger players are often lured away, missing out on the chance to develop a lucrative career in basketball.
A lot of it comes down to affordability for our people out here. The major codes are a lot cheaper because the access to the facilities. There's lots of rugby fields, there's lots of league fields, there's lots of netball courts out there. We're trying to make that as affordable as possible for the children to play in here, but it's not easy.
And it won't be easy for Joel Vaingna to decide between the 2 sports he excels in, basketball and rugby.
Biggest question I ask myself every day, it's I'm still sitting on the fence really, just trying to get a feel which sport I love more, what I can get most out of which sport.
And there's no doubt basketball is popular. A 2011 Sport New Zealand survey looked at the sports organised by schools outside of class time and found basketball ranked 4th. Interestingly, some of the targeted sports funded by High Performance Sport, such as cycling, kayaking, rowing, sailing and triathlon, have far lower participation levels than basketball. Which begs the question, Is high-performance sport funding not only elite athletes, but elitist sports? But the head of high-performance sport New Zealand is unapologetic about the agency's approach. Alex Baumann says the money goes to sports that can bring home the big wins.
We have three categories. One is Olympic sports that have the potential to win medals at Olympic Games, Paralympic sports that have the potential to win gold medals at Paralympic Games, and then non-Olympic sports that actually can win at World Championships. We have 12 sports that we target currently, and it's really those sports that have the potential to medal at either Olympics, Paralympics, or World Championships.
Those 12 targeted sports receive funding from High Performance Sports' budget of around $60 million a year. There is also a contestable fund, and basketball did receive $500,000 from this in 2012, plus another $1.5 million over 3 years from Sport New Zealand. But what's happened to Basketball New Zealand goes to the heart of New Zealand's sports funding philosophy. The government wants winners. It would sooner fund sports like rowing and kayaking. They may not be played by as many people in as many countries like basketball, but they can deliver gold medals. That policy tends to reward big fish in small ponds. Kiwi basketballers are biggish fish in a much bigger pond, currently ranked 18th in the world. But Alex Baumann says other sports have succeeded without much government support.
I think if you really want to do it, you can do it, and I think in 2002 that was demonstrated by the Tall Blacks finishing fourth at the World Championships. When you take a look at after the 2008 Beijing Games, hockey got cut off, women. And you take a look, they built it up, we started supporting them again in 2012, just shy of a medal that came fourth, so it can be done.
But Judd Flavel says asking the men's team to get a top 4 position again is like asking the All Whites to do the same in football. A tough ask.
In particular with a sport like basketball, where you're competing against NBA players, multi-millionaires, programs that put millions into their program, you know, not just thousands of dollars. So we need to be a little bit more realistic in this country. We need to sort of get behind basketball and not just expect it to be able to achieve results just on its own. It needs some help.
High Performance Sports' decision does have some support in the basketball fraternity. Nick Mills is the chief executive of one of New Zealand's most successful basketball teams, the Wellington Saints.
I know that as a basketball person, people will think I'd be crazy saying that, but in reality, you know, Spark, Sport New Zealand, whatever you call it, the government funding agency that gives out the money has been giving out money, has been keeping basketball in New Zealand alive at head office level for so many years. They've just been writing cheques, they've been trying to sort the game out. You know, they basically took control of it a few years ago. So I think they've just got fed up with spending all this money and not getting any result.
Mills says Basketball New Zealand needs to find its own sponsors.
I think that the Tall Blacks, which is our national team, they need to play more games in New Zealand. They need to be promoted, they need to be marketed, they need to be a commodity. And really, the only times that New Zealand people get to see the Tall Blacks, which is their national team, is when they play Australia, which is once a year. We can do that. You know, sport is a business, you know, so they've got to start thinking like a business.
Basketball New Zealand admits it could do better.
We need to diversify. We need ultimately to look to ourselves and the strengths that we have inside the basketball community. We have to take responsibility for the sport ourselves, and there's a lot more of that happening in the last year.
He's also pinning his hopes on a new form of the game, 3-on-3 basketball, the sports version of Sevens rugby, which is a contender for the 2016 Olympics.
Our junior men won the World Cup of 3-on-3 2 years ago. Last year, we finished in the top 8. We're going away this year, so we'd like to think that we're building a strong case for funding for 3-on-3 if it does indeed make the Olympics.
And High Performance Sport Chief Alex Baumann says the door's still open for funding if Basketball New Zealand can make the case.
It would be quite interesting. I hear also it could be a sport in 2016. I think that one of the issues for us is we know team sports are expensive. You get one medal, but again, it is important for this country. So, you know, if 3-on-3 comes into play in Rio, we'll certainly take a look at it.
It's estimated that high performance sport spent nearly $5 million for each New Zealand medal at the Olympics. How far would that kind of money go if it could be spent driving a kid like Joel Vaina into the big time?
Tony Ng reporting, and that story was edited by Hitendra Patel.